Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear students, welcome back to our 9th lecture about our poem Virtue by George Herbert. Of course, we have started this poem last lecture, and today inshallah we are going to continue the rest of this poem. We ended with line 9, if you still remember. And this is a continuous of what we started last time. So by music, the narrator refers to the very verse being read, this poem. Okay, so by music in the poem, the poet here means his poem. So the word music means poem in this poem. So clause is a technical term in music indicating the resolution of a musical phrase, which means that the word music here means the end of a certain phase and certain phrase. Thus, the poetic verse, like everything else the narrator has so far depicted, must come to an end. And this is the idea again. So starting with the day, moving to the rose, and moving also to the spring, saying that all these things, the day, the rose, the spring, everything will have its end. And also the same thing happens to his poem. His poem, as it started, now it comes to an end. So he said that thus the poetic verse, his poem, like everything else the narrator has so far depicted, must also come to an end, as it temporarily does with the 4 stress and conclusive beats of the 12th line. And all must die. So if you go back to the poem, you will find that he ends each quatrain, each stanza, with these lines, which is affirming the main idea in the poem, which is all must die. Everything must die at the end. Okay. Now line 13 to 16. Here, breaking the patterns established in the previous 3 quatrains. The final quatrain begins not with the word sweet, but with a limiting expression, only a. So you find that the last quatrain, the last stanza, does not start with the word sweet, but it starts with only a. The reader has been told that the sweet day, the sweet rose, the reader, of course, we as readers, the reader has been told that the sweet day, the sweet rose, and the sweet spring, all these 3 things which he mentioned in the first 3 quatrain, the first 3 stanza, the sweet rose and the sweet spring, all must die. In contrast to them is the soul. Only a, and only a means that exceptional to all what I said. Now there is one exceptional, this exception, which is, so the virtuous soul is an exceptional to all these things which must die then. So here in stanza 4 and quatrains 4, he has an exception. What is this exception? This one, in contrast to them, is the soul. Only a sweet and virtuous soul, and not any soul, but it's only the sweet and virtuous soul. What happens to this virtuous and sweet soul? Never gives. Never gives. And the word gives here, of course, means never dies. Okay? So here, the soul that is sweet and virtuous, the soul that is sweet and virtuous, unlike the spring, different from the spring, and the day, never gives. That is, it never gives away to death, which means that never, this sweet and virtuous soul will never die, and it will live forever, and it will live eternally. So it never gives way to death, instead ever enduring, which means that it will live forever. Such a sweet soul, disciplined by virtue, like wood that has been seasoned, is fully strengthened. So this soul is so tough and so strong, like what? Like what he described here, like wood. This wood has been seasoned, which means has been left for time, long time, and now it is fully strengthened, it's very strong, right? Lumber that has been seasoned, aged, and dried is more suitable for use in construction than in fresh lumber. Seasoned timber is sturdy and enduring, which is that virtuous soul is so strong and so tough than any other thing else. Okay. Thus, the first three quatrains present images of earthly beauty. So if you look at quatrains number 1, number 2, number 3, you find that they present and they give you an image of these earthly beauty, of this beauty which we can find on earth. But each one of these quatrains, each one of these ends with the word die. So if you go back to the poem, you will find that every quatrain ends with this word, which is the word die. The last quatrain represents images of an eternal soul and of a conflagration that turns the whole world except that virtuous soul. So for the poet, he believes that the whole world will come to an end. The whole world will vanish. The whole world will die and will disappear, except there is one exception. This exception is the eternal soul, which is unlike, which is different from all these things, from all these earthly beauty, like day, like spring, like rose, all these earthly beauty, all of them will die except the virtuous soul. This is the only exception that will never die and it will live eternally. So the last quatrain presents images of the eternal soul, of an eternal soul, and of a conflagration that turns the whole world except that virtuous soul to blackened coal, and its last line ends with the word live. So the first three quatrains end with the word die, but the last one, the last quatrain, ends with the word live, which means that soul is completely different from what's mentioned before. So this contradiction between die and live shows that virtuous soul is an exception and is completely different from the other earthly beauty that is mentioned in the first three quatrains. Okay, as such, the entire poem, as such, the entire poem, which all along worded of death, as such, the entire poem, which all along worded of death, shows the way, it shows the way in which Herbert believes that he and his readers may achieve eternal life. So it shows the way in which Herbert believes that he and his readers may achieve eternal life by shunning transient glory and humbly embracing a virtue. So again, let me read these lines again to see what the poet here, Herbert, wants us to do. He wants us look at as such the entire poem, the whole poem, which all long worded of death. So if you read the poems, you feel that it's a kind of warning us of death. It shows the way in which Herbert believes. He believes that he and his readers, he is giving us a message as his readers, may achieve eternal life. He believes that we, he the poet, and we as reader can achieve, can attain this eternal life, this life which never ends, by doing what? According to him, we can have this eternal life by embracing, as it is can be seen here, by embracing virtue. So he believes that if we embrace virtue, definitely we will not die, and definitely for him we will be eternal. And of course, it doesn't mean that we will be eternal physically. No, he means that we will be eternal spiritually. And of course, this is the difference, because no one can be eternal physically, I mean. So he means we can be eternal spiritually. So our virtuous soul will never die. Okay, now let's move to the next slide. Now these are the themes that we have in this poem. Okay, the themes that we have here. The first theme that we have here in this poem is the transience of earthly beauty. Transience means that it is not permanent, something transitional that moves from one stage to another. Repeatedly throughout the 16 lines of virtue. So throughout these 16 lines of virtue, Herbert asserts, emphasizes beauty's transitory nature. So the beauty is not, for him, beauty is not permanent. It's a temporary one. It's transitional one. So it means that it has one stage and it will move to another stage. So he believes that the beauty is temporary and transitional. His warning is not that people themselves must die, but that the things that delight people while they are alive must pass away. So he does not say that we will die and speaking to us as humans, but he is asserting and emphasizing the idea even not you as human beings will die, but all the things surrounding us, all these earthly beauty that we have and which delights us, which make us happy when we look at them, all these things will die. Okay, so he believes that the earthly beauty is temporary and will not live forever. Okay, now let's move to the next one. The other theme, or the next theme that we have, is the interconnection of life and death. And this is also another important theme, which means that life and death is not, they both of them are not separated from each other. So life and death are united strongly, and they cannot be separated. So besides expressing the impermanence of natural phenomena and virtue, Herbert also reveals the interconnection of the realms of life and death. The earth, which represents impermanence, and the sky, which represents eternity. The sky represents eternity, are joined by the day in union in the second line of the. So he believes that earth is temporary and sky is eternal, is a symbol for eternity, and these two will join each other, will be united and unified together. Okay, now nature, and this is also another theme in this poem. So nature, despite his poems focus on the transcendence of earthly beauty and of the experience of earthly rapture, Herbert delights in the depiction of nature. He delights in the depiction of nature and natural phenomenon. Faith, and this is also another important theme in this poem. And of course, sure, you know the meaning of the word faith. An implicit theme of virtue is faith. Although what is visible to humankind in the poem is the transcendence of earthly delight and the decay of nature, the poem ultimately conveys what cannot be seen and must instead be felt. So he said there is something that we cannot see, but there's something that we have to feel. The existence of a quality, the soul, which exists in the eternal delight, in a dimension other than the one in which our bodies live. Okay? So these abstract things, these concrete things that we can touch. Now there is something that we cannot touch. Of course, no one can touch his soul, but we can feel it inside our bodies. So he believes, he said that we have to believe more in these abstract things that we have inside our bodies, maybe more than the other things that we can touch and the other things that we can see. So again, the existence of a quality which is the soul, which exists in eternal delight. So this soul, if it is virtuous, it will live in eternal delight, in eternal happiness, in permanent happiness, in eternal delight, in a dimension other than the one which our bodies live. So our souls will live in a world which our bodies cannot reach and which our bodies cannot live in. So this soul can move and live in this eternal world with its delights and its happiness. Okay. We have something else which is style, and in style we have what we call anaphora. Anaphora is the repetition of words. Anaphora is the repetition of words and patterns for poetic effect. So please pay attention to this definition. Anaphora is the repetition of words, repeating words and the patterns for poetic effect. So as you can see, the poet repeats some words in the poem just for the sake of emphasizing and for the sake of asserting and for the sake of having this poetic effect. So he said anaphora is the repetition of words and patterns for poetic effect. This device, which is the anaphora, is immediately apparent in the first line. So if you read the first line in the poem, you will find that anaphora is quite clear, with the triple repetition, the 3-time repetitions of the word so. So if you go back to read the first line in the poem, you will find that the word so calm, so delight, and so on, you will find that the word so is repeated here, and this repetition is called in the style of writing poetry what we call anaphora, and the poet did it for the sake of emphasizing his ideas and for the sake of what we call poetic effect. Okay, now let's move to the next one. Moreover, the same poetic structure. Moreover, the same poetic structure governs each of the first 3 stanzas. Moreover, again, the same poetic structure governs each of the first 3 stanzas, while the 4th stanza is shaped by slight variation of these structures. So if you go to the first stanza and the second stanza and the third stanza, you will have this poetic structure is repeated and is governing each of these stanzas. But you will find stanza number 4 different, as we can see. If you go back to the poem, you will find that each of the stanza starts with sweet and so on. But we have the 4th stanza starts with only a, which is the structure, the poetic structure is different. And we find that each stanza ends with the word die, but the 4th stanza ends with the word live, which means that the poetic structure in the last stanza and the 4th stanza is different from the structure in the first 3 quatrains or the first 3 stanzas. So again, moreover, the same poetic structure governs each of the first 3 stanzas, while the 4th stanza is shaped by slight variation, which means that there is some sort of difference, some sort of change, slight change or difference of this structure. Each, and again here is the more clarification here, each of the first 3 stanzas begins with what? The word sweet, and ends with the word die. Okay, so this is, if you go to the first 3 stanza, you will find that they have the same poetic structure, which is starting with the same word and ending with the same word. Starting the first 3 stanzas or the quatrains, they start with the word sweet and they end with the word die. Okay, now the case is different, as I have just mentioned. The case is different with the 4th quatrains, which starts with only a and ends with the word live, which is definitely the opposite of the word die. Okay, let me check the next slide. Again, we have another thing which is about apostrophe, and you need to pay attention to anaphora and apostrophe. So you might be asked something about these two things. So what is apostrophe? In poetry, apostrophe is the technique. It is the technique of calling upon or addressing a particular person or thing. So calling or addressing a particular person or thing. This is what we call apostrophe in poetry. Again, let me repeat this. Apostrophe in poetry. In poetry, apostrophe is the technique of calling upon or addressing a particular person or thing. In the first three stanzas of Virtue, Herbert indirectly addresses the reader of the poem, addresses us as readers of the poem by doing what? By directly addressing the day, a rose, and the spring. And in the fourth stanza, he does not address the soul, but instead talks about it. He didn't. What's meant here? Let me read the last sentence again. So, in the third line, the end of the second line, in the first three stanza of Virtue, Herbert indirectly addresses the reader of the poem by directly addressing the day, a rose, and the spring. Saying addressing means speaking directly to. So he said, sweet day, sweet rose, sweet spring. So addresses indirectly these things. Okay, and of course he didn't speak to us directly. It was like an implicit message he is trying to give us by doing this. But the last two lines here in the fourth stanza, the last stanza, he does not address the soul. He does not address the soul. He does not address the soul. He didn't start stanza 4 or quatrain 4 by saying sweet soul. He didn't do this. In the fourth stanza, he does not address the soul, but instead talks about it. He just talks about here soul in order to give us a direct and more emphasis on the message that he is trying to give us. So please, I'd like you, before moving to the next slide, I'd like you please to pay attention to this, which is apostrophe, and also what we call anaphora. You need to pay attention also to anaphora here. This one also is important, which is the repetition of words and patterns for poetic effect. The repetition of words and patterns for poetic effect. This device is immediately apparent in the first line and so on. So you need again to, before moving to the last point, you need to pay attention here also to the themes that we have here in Virtue, which are the transience of earthly beauty. Also, you need to know that this is also another theme, which is the interconnection of life and death. And also we have another theme, which is nature. And the fourth theme which we have here in this is faith. Okay, so you need to pay attention to all these things. And then we move to what we call Anaphora. The style, we have Anaphora, and another way of discussing it is the apostrophe also, which is another way of emphasizing a certain idea in the point. Okay, now let's move to definitely an important point which usually you are waiting for, which is this one. Okay, these are samples of the questions similar to which you are going to have in the final exam. So you need to pay attention to such types of questions, because as I said before, that they are similar to the one that you are going to have in the final exam. Okay, now this is what I emphasized at the very beginning of my lecture, which is the dates related to some poems, some poets, and related to some dramatists, like this one. George Herbert was born in Wales, and you have 4 dates here. Was he born in 1590 or 1591 or 1592 or 1593? Okay, of course the right answer here is D, which is that he was born in 1593. So please pay attention to the dates related to the poem or the poets. It's very important to do this. Okay, some questions might be about this. Okay, now let's move to the second question, which is an implicit theme of virtue is. So now this question is about the point that we have just finished right now about the themes in the poem. So we have here the themes in the poem. So an implicit theme of virtue, an implicit theme of virtue. Okay, an implicit theme of virtue is, and we have here 4 themes. Is it education, or is it faith, is it psychology, is it hostility? And of course the right answer is B, which is an implicit theme of virtue is the right answer is letter B, which is faith. Okay, so this is the next one. Let's move to another question. Now, this is the next one. Okay, so this is the same question that we have already answered. Now let's move to another question number 3. By my music, this one which is mentioned in the poem. He said by my music here. Herbert refers to his. So the word the music here means what? By his what? Refers to his what? As we said, those who still remember when we were explaining the poem, we said that I said that by my music, the poet here means, does he mean by my music? Herbert refers to, does he refer to his name? Does he refer to his life or his wife or to his poem? Of course, definitely I know that the females now wish that he refers by his music, he refers to his wife, but I'm sorry to disappoint you. Of course, he does not mean here by my music, he does not mean his wife, but he means his poem. Okay, so he means here his poem. So by my music, Herbert refers to his poem, which is the last choice. The correct answer, as you can see in front of you, is D. Letter D is the right poem, the right choice. Okay, now we have already finished our lecture number 9. Best of luck to all of you. Please study hard, and if you have any inquiries, please I'm sorry for this, I'm so sorry for this. Okay, so please, if you have any inquiries, please do not hesitate to ask me. I have been told right now that the mobile is available there, so I'll get the mobile, and inshallah next lecture I'll give you the number of the mobile and the hours that you can contact me during these hours. Thank you very much. All the best to all of you. Wish you a brightening future, and inshallah hope you enjoy and study the materials that you are having in my course. Thank you very much again. Best of luck to all of you. Do not be worried about the course. Inshallah your questions will be quite simple, and inshallah you will be able to answer them in a very good way, but you need to study the materials that you have every time in my lecture. Thank you very much. Best of luck to all of you, and كل سنة وانتم طيبين بمناسبة العيد. Thank you very much. Enjoy your time and enjoy your Eid. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.